Hello and welcome to this, I guess, very weird and special edition of the Boob Tube Buddies podcast featuring our discussion of Fargo. And this one was an absolute doozy. I'm going to skip part of what I normally do for my usual intro because I'm really going to be relying on you this time.
Oh, all right.
So let me go ahead and introduce you. My name is Foxman, and I'm joined by the Mr. Wrench to my Golem. What's up, Nathan?
Hey, buddy. How are you?
Excellent. And by the way, I only know that DJ Qual's name is the Golem because of my closed caption.
Oh, I actually didn't know. Okay. All right. So that's who that's what the character's name is.
According to my closed caption, unless my closed caption guy was even more confused than I was during this episode.
He was like, I don't know, a golem or something.
Why not?
Well, yeah, so this episode had me, I literally thought halfway through, I'm like, I'm going to be recording an episode on this, and I'm just going to have to be like, Adam, what happened?
Dude,
what was, tell me, explain.
Let's put a disclaimer out. We are less TV and movie critics than we are just fans enjoying this show with you and putting it out there. So there are some times where we will be able to watch a show and then go through and like parse it out, look online, put out down a bunch of stuff. But we're recording this fresh right after watching it. And there's no way that my puny little brain can parse through all the information. So we're going to work through it a little bit together as we're talking here.
So I've got some thoughts. All right.
Okay.
Now, obviously, so this episode is very much for me split into two halves. The first half,
yeah.
Right? Okay, so you were talking the first half. Nikki's escape with Mr. Wrench tied together, running through the woods. And then
Wait.
Oh, do we want to? I'm sorry. I just started to sum it up, and I thought, you know what? Actually,
yeah. So let's at least put some structure to this. Let's do our first segment, which is 140 characters or less, used to summarize whatever the fuck we just watched. A little segment we like to call "Summon It Up in a Tweet."
Oh yeah, we're summing it up, just to summon it up, summon it up. Oh yeah, we're summing it up. Oh yeah, we're summing it up, just to summon it up, summon it up and up.
Tweet. Okay, all right. I'll sort of sum up my feelings on it, and I'm going to do it in song. So here's what I've decided for the last three, because last week I ended my tweet with something about what Fargo wants Merry Christmas to all and to all a Wetch fonts.
Yes.
And so I'm gonna do the rest of my tweets as Christmas music parodies.
I love it. Okay.
Even though now we're out of Christmas, but I was gonna continue it anyway. So Silent Night, Gloria's right. Nikki runs from bows, not guns. That surrealist shit is the best. Mr. Wrench in an Indian vest. Emmet's ready to cease, so he seeks the police.
Oh my god, dude, that was so
there
good.
You go.
So
right,
good.
I hope it's 140 characters. I didn't count it. I had no time.
That might have been 1,040 characters.
It could have been, but okay.
You know what?
All right.
It's summing it up in a carol, so that's fine.
There you go. It's a new version of the game.
I like it. I'll totally allow it. Now, mine's a little bit more traditionalist.
That's fine.
But so here goes. My poor little brain. How to talk about this show? Innocents were slain in the Minnesotan snow. What does this say? God in a bowling alley? I don't fucking know. Okay, so that's summing it up in a tweet.
All right, well done.
Now let me ask you. Because I had mentioned it here. Is he God?
Yes. So this is what I kind of wanted to talk about, because there's a standing theory. I don't know. Yes, I can't disclaim that, but there's a standing theory. It looks like online from the very little that I've been able to research, and
the Wandering Jew.
I guess I didn't read it in that context.
Okay, you give me what you got, and I'll give you what
I
thought.
It begins in the beginning with him making a deal with the devil, essentially, and the devil being Varga. And there's what's his face? What's his name in the bowling alley?
God? I have
God,
no idea.
Yeah.
Like,
the dude from the Hollywood episode, though, right?
Yes.
So it's the guy from the Hollywood episode comes back, so I guess we get a little bit of redemption for that episode. But regardless, that he is in some way God's like messenger in all of this. Oh God, there was another role that people were saying that it fills. But what's the Wandering Jew tale?
Okay, so first off, I think I can tie a few very random things together, and I'm going to do it extremely poorly. So, which you guys are used to. You've listened to episodes before. So, so first off, you remember where DJ Qualls on his wrist has Helga tattooed, and Youre mentions, "I knew a Helga once."
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm going to flash you back to the first scene of episode 1 of the 3rd season, this season, which is way back when, and it's basically the person who gets brought in, doesn't seem to understand what's going on, and it's about a missing persons or a dead person or whatever. That person's name was Helga.
The missing person.
The missing person or the dead person, whatever it was. That person's name was Helga.
Yeah, okay, because I literally looked this up, but I was looking up the name of the person who they were accusing, but the person's name was Helga.
I believe so, yes.
Youre is the one who said, "I knew a Helga once." Is that what you're saying?
Yes. So now I'm just going to throw some random concepts at you, and we'll see if we can tie them together. I doubt we can. You would need a lot of time to be able to sit down and go through it. But okay.
Jacob Ungerleiter, though, is the name of that's what I was looking up. Jacob Ungerleiter was the name of the guy in the beginning. But either way, all right, throw the concepts out.
Okay. So then we also have the story which happens in Oman, right? Which is essentially the tale about all the women and children that were slain and they were thrown into the burial thing. And then there's the one guy who comes along, I think it was a rabbi, who says, when I'm dead, take my body and bury it here so that my soul can bind them and heal them and things like that as well. And there was some part of that story that tied in with a story about a wandering Jew, and that's the rabbi. And supposedly, from what I read online, that wandering Jew was the same Jew. This, I swear to God, this is what I read online.
Okay.
It's the same wandering Jew. This is so weird that had shouted at Jesus insults when he was on the cross and then was doomed to wander the earth. And no, I swear to God, I'm reading, this is something that I read on Reddit.
I'm kind of seeing this now. The Wandering Jew is a mythical, immortal man whose legend began to spread in Europe in the 13th century.
Okay.
I've never heard of it.
Now tie all this in with the fucking robot who wandered the earth for hundreds or thousands, actually, of years in that Hollywood episode.
Okay.
And what does it all mean? Who the fuck knows?
All right. Okay. Well, let's talk about the episode as the episode is really quickly.
Oh my God, please.
Just dive into the actual, what we watched and maybe the meaning of it all, because I'm sure I'll sleep on it tonight and then I'll wake up with other thoughts and I'll be like, I wish we recorded the podcast today, but maybe not.
Yes.
But regardless. So let's talk about this in two halves and let's sort of talk about the first half of it. Firstly, all right. Did you enjoy the sequences that made up the first half of this episode?
100%. I personally really liked the first 20 minutes of this episode and thought that it was tangible and interesting.
So, yeah, me too. And I mean, even up in through the bowling alley. So here's the thing about the Fargo series as a whole. What are the characteristics of Fargo? It's super dark violence, kind of dark in a humorous way. All right.
Yeah, so and jet black humor, the darkest of all humor.
Which happens.
Yes.
They literally chop a dude's head off, with a chain. So good. And so, that, it had that element of it, right?
Yes.
This sort of underlying suspense totally had that. From the very get-go, this episode kicked off running. You've got the other perspective of how they managed to get the bus to flip, which last week we made fun of it because it was so Youre walked out into the road and then the bus just corkscrewed somehow. But yes. I guess they set up a ramp.
Which I actually found to be really interesting. So, okay, because it starts off and they're using the blowtorch. They're clearly creating something and welding something. And then they bring it out. And at first I thought that, what is this thing that they have? Is it a battering ram that they're going to use once they get into the bus to break down the cage? No, it's a ramp. And so that I thought was super interesting.
Yeah.
And then
and him walking into the road. Oh, I was going to say him walking into the road makes a lot more sense. It doesn't look as dumb because it's like, well, if the bus driver's just driving down the road and sees a ramp, he'll swerve to not hit it. But if he sees a person, he'll swerve to not hit the person and then hit the ramp.
Agreed. And plus, you might not necessarily see the ramp as quickly because it's black. And it's night, so you would not see the ramp as quickly as you would see like a figure moving through the road. So even if you ended up seeing the ramp, you'd have already swerved into it by that point.
So there's some thought there. I'm impressed.
Okay, yes, I agree. To me, that was like totally acceptable now.
Yeah.
So so we got that part. Now, the escape from the bus I found to be very interesting too, and very tense.
Yeah, I mean, the cinematography in the whole episode is super cool. I was going to say, this is probably one of the best directed episodes of the season.
Yes.
Like, it's just really cool to watch in a way that makes me want to go back and just watch certain scenes all over again. And the bus one is one of them. When the bus is just lying on its side and you're looking at it from above and there's just lights flashing as they all crawl out of the bus, it's just really cool looking. And there's like fog in the road. It's just super suspenseful and dark, and it just leads to this cool chase sequence.
And the chase sequence was awesome, too, because of the way that the bleak landscape is in Minnesota, essentially it almost was like a black and white scene for a big chunk of it, and with very muted colors.
Yeah, you can barely see any color in this, including, and so there's this moment where a couple drives up and sees the bus, and then they follow that couple and, run them off the road and then kill them execution style, they say. So again, this sort of dark humor to this whole thing. But yeah, this very gritty kind of, Logan-esque, if you will, look to it.
Yeah.
So there's also this moment where there's a guy and either his son or a younger guy who are hunting and they accidentally shoot the wolf head off of Youre. And then Youre just shows up behind them. Was there resolution to that? Did he kill them?
Yes. Now, I wanted to mention this. There is 2 moments of implied violence in this episode. There is this moment right here where clearly because he comes up behind them, and then we see him basically the very next shot, carrying their weapons. And
he's carrying their weapons.
They're dead. They're dead.
Okay.
And same with the people where we don't see the Asian henchman guy. We do not see him run those people off the road. We see the headlights approaching as he's going to bump them, but then we see them dead later. And there is something that is very visceral about implied violence, because it really, especially when you see all this other violence, to see this implied violence with total innocent bystanders, but then to only get to see like a little bit of like the aftermath, for example, with the people run off the road. I don't know. It hit me in a totally different way, and I think that that's awesome to kind of stagger out the way that you're going to portray your violence like that.
I 100% agree, and I'm glad they chose to do that with the innocent bystanders, because there's a line you cross where it goes from like, ooh, crazy to, oh, wait, no, oh, that sucks.
And gratuitous perhaps too.
Yeah, and so, you see those people, those kind of nice-sounding people driving the car, and then later learn that they get run off the road, but that blow doesn't hit as hard because you don't actually see it happen.
Agreed.
Versus you can literally watch them decapitate a man in this awesome like fight sequence around this tree stump, and it's just sort of like, oh my God, Fargo, there's Fargo. I see it. I love it.
Yeah.
So good.
Well, the first 20 minutes of this episode, I'm sitting here thinking, this is why I watch Fargo. Like, to me, this is classic. Like, it's dark. It's almost a little bit scary. It's very intense. Yeah. It's nuanced. It's a little avant-garde, but there's like some real structure and intensity to it.
Yeah.
And I guess I kind of still felt that way on the back end of it, but it also was. And this is going to be an unpopular opinion, because I'm sure that to everybody, and maybe even to me, that this is the most, probably the favorite episode of this season.
Yeah.
The second half of it was so bizarre that part of me did not walk away from it feeling, I don't know, excited. Just confused, really.
Well, all right. So then let's talk about that. Are we talking about the bowling alley scene?
The bowling alley scene is where it started for sure. And then I guess I guess I don't really like when things abruptly jump forward in time. So the fact that we see Sai basically go down and then his beard's grown and now he's in a coma and has been for like 4 months perhaps?
It's March 15th. So it's
okay.
2.5 really.
2.5, 3. Okay. So that just always bums me out because I feel like we've missed things that are somehow important to the plot. And
fair enough.
And then Emmet is losing his mind, but we don't know if that is being brought on probably by Nikki, maybe, I guess.
Yeah, so the only reason I don't really mind that, and that the second half of the episode did hold together, and we're ignoring the bowling alley sequence altogether for a moment.
We're certainly going to come back to it.
Let's leave that for the last part. So the second half of the episode, we jump forward after Sai gets poisoned, which, by the way, after they force-fed him tea and forced him to sip it twice, I was like, if I'm in Sai and I actually make it out of that house still walking and able to drive, I drive to the hospital.
Oh my God.
Like,
yes, because
I'm like,
you can't, like I saw people online like, why would he drink that? And it's like, well, what the fuck else is he going to do?
No,
he's going to drink it regardless, like whether it's by his own hand or not.
Yeah, they had him in a situation where he had to drink it, kind of like later where Emmet really kind of had to take the pills.
Yes.
But regardless, if Sai is lucky enough to walk out of there, like, I think, okay, I don't trust these people. I know I don't trust these people. They made me drink something, which is weird. No one does that. I'm going to a hospital now, which later he winds up having to do anyways.
But it's too late because it's already coursed through his system.
Right. And so he's alive, but in a coma. And we jump forward 2.5 months. And the reason that held together for me is because all of the mysteries on the other side of that time jump, namely the mystery on the other side of that time jump, which is who is haunting Emmet, it seems interesting for me to try to open that mystery box, right? To try to like figure out who is doing this, what has Nikki been doing in the interim, and how did she get to a position where she's able to manipulate Emmett's life to this extreme and sort of haunt him, and what is her end goal? Because something must have happened in Nikki's life during that time. And I'm assuming this is Nikki, and it might not be, which would also be a nice surprise. But if it is, I want to know what happened in her life during that time and what sort of power has she gained over Emmet that she's intending to exploit. And sort of not knowing what Nikki's up to is interesting to me because I love her, but I've always known what she's doing until now.
Yeah, see, I don't know either. We don't know if she's gone to ground and if it's going to be like a Granite State sort of moment like from Breaking Bad, or if it's or if she has somehow come into the fold or into contact with some other nefarious group that maybe Mr. Wrench is working for. Either way, now that their paths are tied inexorably together, I am curious to see how the dichotomy is going to work out between Varga and his crew, Emmet, Goldfarb, Gloria also versus Varga, but then also now Mr. Wrench and Nikki versus... So I just don't necessarily know who is going to end up on whose side. I guess Emmet, judging by the end, is now going to be in the pocket of Gloria.
I mean, everyone wants to be against Varga in the end. Like, that's everyone's end goal. No one wants to side with Varga except Varga's henchmen, And so you've kind of got this force who's acting against everybody's will, but enough people who are weak that he's able to bend to his will. And so, but ultimately anyone who could choose to be against him would want to be against him. So I the fact that Emmet in the end, so here's the other thing. Emmet gets, suppressed is the word I want to use, but what are they? Sedated.
Yeah.
He falls asleep with his eyes open in a weird way and then wakes up. And then next thing we know, he goes to the police and says he wants to confess. Okay. Well, why did they sedate him? What was the purpose of that? And there's no way Varga doesn't know that he went to the police station. So is he really there of his own accord? Or is there something else going on?
I suppose that's a fair question too. I feel like he is there of his own accord. I feel like perhaps Nikki or whomever this other force is that's changing out the stamps things and all that other stuff. I feel like they are slowly manipulating Emmet towards being an agent against Varga, whereas Varga still just kind of views him as sort of like a a flaccid tool, like something that doesn't actually have enough strength or power to be able to fight against him, but it's something that can just be bent and used to his will that maybe he's now not realizing is kind of being somehow poisoned against him just by virtue of being made to think that he's completely insane.
Okay. So if it is those two forces working for Emmet, that, or for Emmet's, loyalty, then it is like the God and the devil battling for a man's soul kind of thing.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So you may or may not have this guy from the bowling alley and Vargas separately both battling for his soul, or it could be a Job type situation or something like that, right? But in some way there's some sort of, good and evil allegory going on here, I think, against Emmet and where he will ultimately side. And in the end, we get a little bit of glimpse of that. We also, the other mystery...
It's also not really like a subtle allegory. I mean, there's a lot of talk about like the wicked and things like that.
Yeah, well, in this one especially.
Exactly, yeah.
The allegory becomes immediately apparent and almost literal in the bowling alley. So the other thing I was going to mention about the other side of this episode is the mystery on the other half, 2.5 months later. Gloria's situation, she's now not police chief. She's a deputy, right? Is what she said.
Yep.
And she also exists in a regular police station with computers and stuff around her. So I'm wondering if this switch over, if this sort of change in her environment is going to manifest itself as a change in her interaction with technology, or if her ineptitude with technology is going to be a sticking point here in some capacity.
My God, this is a busy season. Listen to us like talking about all the different factors, and it's like, oh my God, dude, I don't know how to parse it all out.
So Gloria's desk, she sits across from her partner.
Yes.
I can never remember his name, but she sits across from him. She has a typewriter. He has a computer. Do you see that?
Oh, you know what? No, I actually missed that.
Yeah, so she still straight up does not endorse or, interact with technology.
That's not surprising. Yeah.
Yeah, so even in this, she still stays away from technology. So I do think that that's going to be sort of a sticking point, her in this environment, but not being able to interact with the technology all around her. She also, and were the divorce, it's divorce papers, right?
100%, yes.
Was that a thing in the season? Do I remember that?
I mean, I guess in the very beginning, we did get something to the effect of she and her ex-husband or her estranged husband who is gay.
Who's gay, right?
Yeah, maybe I just didn't realize that they weren't officially divorced. It doesn't feel particularly pivotal, right?
Well, it almost did to me because, one, the first shot of it, they hung very long on the fact that there was one signature but not another.
Yes.
There was her husband's signature but not hers on the divorce papers. Secondly, she makes a definitive decision in the end to turn around and sign the papers. And the second she signs the papers, Emmet looks at her and says, I want to confess. Right?
Yeah.
And so things begin to change for her the second she makes a commitment that she had been unwilling otherwise to make. But the problem with that being an actual turning point and what I'm just said being an actual point is that they never brought that up in the season otherwise. This is the first time I've seen divorce papers. If this had been something from the beginning of the season where they had said, oh, Gloria has these divorce papers, but she's been refusing to sign them.
Or just not getting around to it. Like we see her pausing with it and then like something gets her attention. She sets it aside.
Taking her time. And if you mentioned that in the first episode, I'll say the 5th episode, and now this one, that alone would have been enough for me to be like, oh, she signed the papers and everything changed. That makes sense. Wow, it's been her reluctance or, her distraction from making commitment. I don't think that that's it, though, because they haven't consistently brought that up. Unless I'm wrong, unless I missed it, and unless the divorce papers have been a motif.
I really do not recall. If they have, then it's been very subtle. Real quick, I think that we should throw over to Kristen from the Boob Tube Buddies for her Darn Tootin segment real quick. Sounds good?
Sounds good.
Darn Tootin.
Hey there, it's your Boob Tube Betty, Kristen, with your Darn Tootin' Fargo facts. Actually, a lot of these facts came from Jake Rassin of Mental Floss. Noah Hawley has been quoted as saying he thinks that the Fargo-verse as being influenced by a big book of Midwestern crime tales, with each season being a different chapter. He cemented that idea in the 9th episode of the 2nd season, opening with a close-up of a book titled The History of True Crime in the Midwest. Fact 2. While there were plenty of freezing to go around, the production couldn't always rely on a steady stream of snow, you know. The show used a fake concoction made of shredded rice cakes that proved bothersome to the actors. Oh, I bet it did. It made their shoes so slick it was hard to walk without slipping, and breathing in it resulted in bronchial irritation. Ugh. Okay, fact 3. When the series announced it would be taking advantage of the tax breaks available to television productions shooting in Canada, the city of Fargo, North Dakota let out a collective sigh. I was afraid they might want to shoot it in Canada, said Charlie Johnson, president of the city's Visitors Bureau. The state has no film commission to offer any financial breaks, but they do have a wood chipper at their tourist center. Okay then, those are your darn tootin' facts from your Boob Tube Betty Kristen. Have a good night, guys.
Darn tootin'.
Thank you so much to Kristen for that. As always, has been. By the way, tonight she ended up recording a Sense8 episode, a Twin Peaks episode, a segment for our Best of 2017 episode, and then this darn tootin' fact right here. So she literally just Swiss Army knifed her way across Boob Tube Buddies tonight.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Pretty impressive. Yeah. So anyway, thank you very much to Kristen. And I guess while I'm mentioning the best of, I should say our Best of May is going to be out either at the same time as this Fargo episode or within a day or two of it. And we got a bunch of the crew is on here. We have a writer from, I believe, Slate, who interviewed for it and just kind of went over a lot of the stuff from the last month. And it's a good, quick look at all the different TV, movies. I talk a little bit about my VR headset a little bit too. So it's a pretty good episode.
Pretty good. Cool.
Okay, so let's like get straight to the bowling alley scene. Can we
right.
We need to spend some time on this, okay?
We do.
Okay,
That's
first
true.
off, did this remind you of any Coen Brothers movies?
Lebowski. That's what we're saying.
Absolutely.
So I wondered if I'm supposed, when I first saw the bowling alley, I'm wondering if I was supposed to recognize this particular bowling alley with the bowl logo flashing 1, 2, 3, 4, all in pink. But I don't think so. I don't recognize this bowling alley, right? Do you?
I did not recall it,
Okay,
no.
so it is just meant to exist as this like standing beacon of hope for them as they're running through the woods trying to escape, and then they see this bright pink glow, and they just see a bowling alley, an undescript bowling alley, right?
Yes, that is completely devoid of all existence other than God, the lane attendant, and the dude handing out shoes and alcohol.
Right. Yeah. No one's actually bowling, right? We don't actually see anybody.
No, not only do we
bowling.
not see it, we do not hear any balls rolling down the lane.
Yes. So she walks in there with Mr. Wrench.
Yep.
Who sits down, and then she goes over to get a drink, sits down, and we reveal that she's sitting next to the dude from the Hollywood episode.
Exactly. Who, by the way, if this were The Big Lebowski, that would be Sam Elliott.
Right. And we've talked about this guy before. We dived in a little bit to who we thought this guy might be, but I think we sort of ignored it after he was never brought up again. And I don't know why he had sort of escaped my mind.
So wait, is it Fargo canon now that that God cock-blocked Mac from scoring with Gloria? I mean, like, that happened, right?
Yeah, that officially happened. Yeah. Well, see, okay, all right. So if we're rolling with the theory that this is God,
yes,
I gotta go back, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but I gotta go back and watch scenes from the Hollywood episode.
God bless you. God bless you.
I'll do it so you don't have to.
Man, that's taking one for the team, dude. You're my wandering Jew. I really appreciate it.
But all right. So first he hands her a cat and says the words. The cat, what does he say? The cat, Ray is the cat.
Yes.
Is the words he says, right?
Yes.
Ray is the cat. And she says, what? And he says, the cat's name is Ray. I named it Ray. And then he says this thing about bodies being able to inhabit, or souls being able to inhabit new bodies. And she thought that was the cat was Ray.
Yep.
But then he says that some souls aren't able to find a new body to attach themselves to. So I don't know if in the end this cat is meant to be
that's
Ray.
that was confusing to me just because of that line. Like, I thought I was catching on to what he was saying until he said that. And then I thought that was kind of like explaining something and then saying, or not.
yeah, because that's what I got. I was like, oh, it's Ray. And he's like, no, not really, but I just wanted you to think it was, you know?
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay. And then when she leaves him, she says, do me a favor, will you, when the Gophers play, buy a beer and set the cat in front of the television.
Yeah.
Because she still does think that it's Ray. And then what are his big points to her over the course of his conversation? Because
real quick, let me mention again that we're hearing about the Gophers here, and it's come up so many times. But I just have to say, LD, thank you for setting us straight, or else we would have ended up like looking like fucking jagweeds, episode after episode after episode. Like, who are these Gophers? Like, I'm so glad that and by the way, that's the guy on YouTube that told us that. Yeah. I'm so glad he set us straight so that we only looked like assholes one time instead of over and over.
One time we looked like assholes.
Oh, can I mention something from this scene with the cat?
Oh, sure.
Okay, so Noah Hawley did an AMA on Reddit last year, 11 months ago, and
I was like, after this episode, please hit me up. I need to read that.
Well,
but no, okay.
So 11 months ago, a Redditor who is user Dale Fritter asked him, any plans to include elements from Inside Llewyn Davis into future Fargo episodes? It's my favorite Coen Brothers movie. Congratulations on writing the best show on television. And Noah Hawley said, and this is 11 months ago, if you see a man who is also a cat, you will now know you've been heard. And so now,
what?
Yeah. So he teased it out in the most vague and random way 11 months ago in an AMA on Reddit.
Well, maybe that's the only reason the cat thing happened. It's entirely possible that that's the entirety of the meaning behind the cat being Ray.
I have no idea. But the funniest part is like, usually on these AMAs, like Keanu Reeves will do it and he'll have 12,000 upvotes on every one of his comments. This is 15 points, which means 15 upvotes essentially.
15 people liked the fact that there would be a cat that is also a man.
Yeah, exactly.
That's, hey, you know what? Intimate crowd.
Yeah.
Go Noah.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. So, but okay. So, and then Youre comes over and talks to him, and what was the fuck was that flashback with all the Jews that had been thrown into that pit?
So this is the second that I began to Google the first episode and try to remember what happened in the first episode to see if Yuri's life tied in any way to that sequence in episode 1.
And I gave you the Helga tie-in, which I don't know, is tenuous.
What is the fake name that the guy uses in the first episode? He says he's not the actual guy. His name is something else.
Yeah, I can't remember that either. That's a fair question.
Yeah. I'll have to go listen to that. But I don't know. So firstly, God tells Nikki to deliver a message to the wicked.
Yes.
And essentially says a message about, God smiting them or.
And it's okay if you don't remember it now, Nathan. You will remember it when the time comes.
See, thank you. Because he said that to her, and I went, God, if I had to say that, I don't know if I could remember those 3 sentences.
Oh my God, hell no.
Some about eagles, and then I'm gonna beat you. That's effectively what the 3 verses were.
Yeah, but, I'd end up accidentally singing "Paint with All the Colors of the Wind" from Pocahontas if I tried to do it.
Have you ever heard the wolf cry?
Why did you sing that like you were Scott Stapp from Creed all of a sudden?
Coal moon. But then when he sees Youre, I expected him to say that line. He didn't. He said, "I do have a message to deliver for you." But who does the message he deliver from?
God, I really don't remember that either.
God.
It was just a very confusing scene.
All right, hold on. We owe our listeners this. Give me one moment.
Okay.
We're gonna take a micro break.
Okay.
And we're gonna literally cut back with some more information than we have right now. Okay.
Okay. Do it.
All right. 1 sec.
Well, we're Boob Tube Buddies, yeah, we're old friends. We're gonna talk about TV up till the end of night or day. It doesn't matter at all. We're a podcast, baby, so we're on call. We will entertain, but we need your help. audibletrial.com/Boob Tube Buddies.
All right, I'm gonna let you jump it off here because you just looked it up. I actually ended up reading some stuff too, so that we could give you guys at least a little bit of actual informed discussion.
We've never done that once, and this damn surreal episode had us go, fuck it, pause.
Yeah, I agree. Yes.
Research moment. All right. So firstly, this character says to Yuri, "You are Yuri Gurka. Something of something," which I didn't understand. Then he says, "Grandchild of the Wolves 100," is what he says. Mm-hmm. And then he confirms. And he says, "I have a message for you from Helga Ulbrecht and the Rabbi Nachman." And then all he does is turn his head, and they look forward. And then he sees, presumably Helga, and a bunch of other people behind him. And I believe someone who appears to be a rabbi, all in black and white, staring back at him, looking very angry.
Yes.
The crux to this, as some of our listeners may be yelling at us, like, fuck you guys, are you kidding me? Do you not remember the first scene of the first fucking episode?
Yes. Okay, now, so Helga Ulbrecht was the person who had been murdered in the first one. The man had been framed for it, and the person that they were looking for...
Yuri Gurka.
Yuri Gurka. Exactly. So that is who this is, and that was in 1988. And so this would then be, about 22 years later, which apparently to the math that I'm reading online here would make current Yuri be in his early 40s. And that dude looks pretty weathered, so I could buy that. Plus, I think that Noah Hawley plays a little fast and loose with his timelines, as do the Coen brothers sometimes a little bit.
Yeah.
So I don't see any issues with that. That lines up for me.
The other thing, so the reason we just literally this episode, we were kind of toying around with this idea, but couldn't remember the names. And now we've looked them up and confirmed it. But when I first watched this episode, the first episode, I perceived it as this dude was lying. No, my name is Jacob Ungerleider, right? And then the guy caught him in a lie. That's what I thought, is that was actually Yuri Gurka, but was caught in that moment in a lie, trying to pass himself off as Jacob Ungerleider. But that's not the case. That actually was Jacob Ungerleider being framed for the murder that Yuri Gurka had committed, killing Helga Ulbrecht.
Exactly. Now, what any of this actually means or how it impacts the story that we've been watching, not sure. Well, but unless you have some thoughts.
No, not sure in terms of what it actually impacts. But if we introduce this idea that this guy might be God and that he's sending Nikki out on a quest, right, to deliver a message to the wicked, and we want to believe that this is truly God and not just some dude, right?
Yeah.
Then we get this confirmation scene immediately after the scene with Nikki where he essentially delivers his wrath upon Yuri. And we get a confirmation that, oh no, this isn't a joke. This dude is like spiritual, and has actually is in touch with what he says he's in touch with. And he has now done to Yuri what he intends to do to Varga in the last episode through Nikki,
Yeah.
So I think it's just sort of a confirmation of the idea that this guy is God and is there to deliver wrath upon the wicked. That's it.
How does Thaddeus Mobley tie into this? I'm so fucking confused,
Thaddeus
right? My poor brain
was a writer, and then Gloria went to check Thaddeus Mobley, and God met Gloria, and then cock-blocked Mac. That's it.
Okay, so that's the significance. It was all just so that Mac could be cock-blocked?
It was all just a cock-block. This episode is a cock-block.
Oh my god, it's like the Dallas Dream sequence.
So damn this episode. Hot damn this episode. There's
you know
so
what's
much
coming,
going
right,
on.
Nathan? You know what's coming. Scale of 1 to 10.
Well, here's the thing, is if you had asked me, so I also love, we were talking elements of Fargo. We were saying dark humor, suspense. I will also give, like, especially with the show, kind of random surrealism. I will give Fargo random surrealism, and I enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, because it's always absurdist commentary, you know, like because we want explanation and we want like it to have some tangible meaning, but that's not really what they do.
No, not all the time, and I don't mind watching it and going, "What the fuck?" But that was cool, you know, and then maybe thinking about it later and maybe finding some meaning in it. But ultimately, I just watched a visually stunning, really beautiful, interestingly dialogued piece of art, you know, and I do love the dialogue that happened in that bowling alley. That's part of the reason I missed a lot of it, is I was just watching, kind of listening to the words, but not comprehending them, just sort of loving everything, all the performances that were coming out. And I'd missed desiring to see performances. We talked about that last week, Ewan McGregor's performance not being stellar. I missed just watching the screen, eyes glued to the actors.
Eyes glued to the actor. That's where it is right here. And I will say, I am so guilty of, and this is such a bad habit, and I think that a lot of people are probably guilty of it in this age, of picking up my phone and scrolling through absolute nothingness, basically, while I'm watching something that I'm actually enjoying. And I can't tell you why I end up doing it, but I do. And I did not do that at all. During this episode.
Exactly. I have this go-to mindless game that I've been playing when I'm watching TV.
What is
just
it?
Because balls. It's so mindless, it's insane. It's basically Breakout, but instead of shooting one ball up and having a little pong paddle at the bottom, you just shoot out like 100 different little balls, and they go and they hit these bricks. And it's addicting and super mindless and really fun.
Okay.
And it doesn't distract me from the actual episode itself. Sometimes it takes my eyes off of it, though. And in this case of this episode, I didn't pull my phone out one time because I didn't want to. My eyes were glued. And so up into the bowling alley, and even through the bowling alley part, I was going, this is my 10 episode. I think this is my 10 episode. And then the latter half of the episode definitely was spotty a little bit, just because I'm like, all right. So the first half definitely had a solid story to tell, beginning, middle, end story of Nikki's escape from the bus.
I would give the first half a 10, and I would give the second half an 8.5. So I think what I'd probably average it out to is like a nebulous 9.5. You know what I mean? Like,
a 9.5, but you'll have to ask me what I mean by that.
Yeah, that's exactly. That's why I throw in the nebulous with it, so that you know it's subject to morph.
But we started this episode by going literally, what the fuck? Like, we missed our intro to this podcast because we said, what the fuck?
I've just never been so like blown away in a confusing and positive, but also I don't know, that's like maybe it was a little over my head. It was just but it's still my favorite episode of the season. Yeah. This is still my favorite episode, despite that absurd confusion. This is my favorite episode of the season so far. Only because if I look back at this whole season and someone said you have to watch one episode again, which one is it going to be? My God,
it's going to be episode 8.
No brainer.
Are you kidding me? No brainer. Episode 8. I will watch that again. Absolutely. So yeah, I loved this episode.
I agree. Okay, let's leave it off there before we start getting on another tangent about something we have no fucking idea. End up having to pause the podcast and go to research it. So
and by the way, just I mentioned last week.
Course,
you saw Wonder Woman?
I haven't. No, God.
Oh no. Okay. All right. I keep bringing this up because David Thewlis. That's the only reason. But once you see it, I want to say some stuff about David Thewlis.
Okay, all right, fair enough. So I mentioned the Best Of podcast earlier. We also have Better Call Saul, which, by the way, Jables and I did an In Sync, It's Gonna Be Me, Better Call Saul parody this week. It was pretty fucking ridiculous. I will say, not bad. We had some pretty sexy harmonies on there.
Ooh, I want to hear.
We also have
a good episode of Better Call Saul.
Oh yeah, oh god, yeah. And I think that the last it's gearing up to be like a really good ending to the season. I'm hoping, because it's been a little underwhelming throughout. But anyway,
it has.
Yeah, we also have Sense8, which, by the way, got fucking canceled, which is nutsos. We talked about that. And then we have American Gods and Twin Peaks. So check out our other content. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and Reddit. We are very responsive, so whether what you're sending us is a correction on any of the fucking nonsense that we're spitting out, or whether...
The Wandering Jew. Yeah. What is that, Adam? You made that up, right?
My brain is the Wandering Jew this episode. So anyway, we love hearing from you guys. Please write in. And that's it. I'll hop down off my soapbox. And Nathan, would you like to tie a bow on this bitch?
I love that I get the honors every week. This is just so nice. Thank you so much. Absolutely. Hey, you know what? See you next time, little buddies.